Hello friends, I'm Andrew Brunson. I met Haralan Popov when I read his book in a Turkish prison. After 23 years as a missionary in Turkey, the Turkish government falsely accused me of terrorism and espionage. They threatened to give me 3 life sentences in solitary confinement with no possibility of parole. The isolation, the fear, the uncertainty, they overwhelmed me, and I broke emotionally, I broke physically, mentally during my first year. And I also broke spiritually. I went into crisis with God. And in the second year, God rebuilt me and I came out stronger than when I had gone in. I want to mention 2 things that stood out to me in prison about Popov. The first may surprise you. It was a moment of weakness. Popov was tortured, as you know, and eventually he broke under the pressure. If I remember correctly, one time a guard held a gun to his head and Popov exclaimed, "Go ahead, pull the trigger, pull the trigger." He wanted to die. And I could relate to this. Popov's occasional weakness was actually an encouragement to me because the biographies I read before going to prison did not prepare me very well for the difficulties that I faced. Very few show the struggle and the pain. I thought I was the weakest person in the world. But then I saw that others had struggled also. We're human. We break. And God allows it. But in spite of Popov breaking under torture and some moments of weakness, what stands out about him was his faithful endurance. Early in my imprisonment, my mother was allowed to see me, and I was already starting to break, and she said to me, "Andrew, there's a long line of believers who have suffered for the sake of Jesus Christ. It's a line that extends 2,000 years. My son, it is now your turn to stand in that line." Now, I didn't want to hear this at the time, but as my imprisonment dragged on, this became very important to me. I thought of others who'd gone before me. I thought of Richard Wurmbrand, and I thought of Haralan Popov, and I tried to follow their example. I would say to myself, if they endured, then I have to endure as well. They were faithful, and I must be faithful. And I looked at that line that had gone before me. And then I became aware that there are others who will stand in that line after me, and that I had to leave an example of faithful endurance for them. And some of you, I expect, will also have to stand in that line. So I want to honor Haralan Popov for his faithfulness. And someday I will meet him in heaven, and I will thank him for the example that he left for me. May all of you stand in your generation.